Why is there diet culture on the parking meters? Why do we have on the parking meters, sometimes I diet, don't feed me on the following holidays? Why are we promoting fat phobia and diet culture even on the parking meters in LA? It gets to a point. It really does get to a point. This is an issue and this needs to be fixed. West Hollywood, this is actually disgusting. Y'all, Target has lost their last mind. Go up a size or two in your moto jacket for an easy, effortlessly go up a size or two from an XXL. Lost y'all last mind. Target, let me give you a style tip. If you're gonna so inconsiderately suggest that people go up a size or two, at least have the sizes. And not just online, also in store. Now, I don't know who told y'all that was a good idea, but y'all need to either fix that sign or fix your sizes. Hopefully both.
I'm calling out all the grifters in the plus size community. Let's talk about it. And if you're new to the channel, I personally like to welcome you. I'm Sonia, and I'm a nutrition coach who helps women over the age of 40 lose body fat. And today's hot topic is Samira, the plus size influencer. What inspired me to make this video is I was watching my favorite YouTuber, Michelle McCammon. Now, if you're not familiar with her content, she does all these little funny little skits, and she talks about controversial topics, and she tells her personal opinion about it. And I thought she had some great, interesting things, and she always has Samira on there, where she's a fat influencer that calls out different. Well, let me give you a little bit of history on Samira. Samira is a popular TikToker who goes into different brand stores, for example, like Target, Old Navy, Victoria's Secret, and if they don't have her size, she calls them out for not having size inclusivity and how they're fat phobic. So in the beginning of this video, I put a few clips so you can familiarize yourself with her particular content. And I'm just going to expose her grifting in the community and how she's keeping people that are obese that actually need to lose weight for their health to keep them complacent by using her intellectual superiority to have validity in her talking points and how people should just stay stagnant and just call people out for being the part of the problem and not actually looking within. Let's get into it. So just watch this clip real quick and we'll talk.
Weight loss programs are actually some of the unhealthiest things to exist in our society. If you don't believe me, you could keep scrolling. I don't care. Now, it is not weight that actually causes any kind of health concerns, but rather the oscillation of weight. And because diets do not work, your weight is bound to oscillate. Furthermore, these programs tie your sense of worth to your weight, which impacts your mental health to the extent of, if I'm not losing weight, if I'm not skinny, something is wrong with me. And let's not forget that mental health also affects physical health. Now let's also sprinkle in all those comments from family members and friends about your weight, and you now have a recipe for physical and mental disaster. Because you are going to be so focused on your worth being tied to your weight. And y'all ask me all the time, Samira, how are you so confident? How do you feel so good about yourself? It's because my worth is not tied to my weight. Diet culture is a scam. It is one of the most unhealthy things that we partake in as a society. And your weight does not determine your health or your worth. Now get out there and go sleep.
There's a lot of problematic things she said in this clip, and this triggered me as a nutrition coach. So let's talk about the weight. Your weight has nothing to do with your health, which is a lie from the pits of hell. As a Harvard Harvard graduate, she does a lot of research. She should know that your weight has a lot to do with impacting your health. Now, yes, there can be skinny people with a lot of health issues, but being morbidly obese can significantly impact your health. When you see people with 500-pound life, they're having heart issues. They're barely out of breath walking 2 flights of stairs. Just walking 2 miles or making 2 steps, they're out of breath. So that's an indication that their health is not to par because they have too much fat mass on their body to support that. So for her to say that health has nothing to do with weight is a lie and is being intellectually dishonest when there's research that contradict what she's stating. Now, she was saying how diet culture is very toxic and how your weight keeps to oscillating, going back and forth due to what I think she means is that going on a diet keeps people in a perpetual cycle of going on diets, getting off diets, gaining weight, losing weight, and contributing your weight, your worth due to your weight and that there's something wrong with you if you don't lose weight. There's some nuance to it. Yes, your weight has nothing to do with your weight and your worthiness as a person. However, if you're unhealthy because of your weight, it's important that you eat the healthy foods to get in the proper health. Now, on this channel, I don't promote any type of diets because I believe that diets are very restrictive and it doesn't bring out the healthy change that somebody needs to do over time. Now, there's always this I haven't did the proper research onto how many people have gained weight after they go on the diet, but if you're making a lifestyle changes, you're going to lose the weight and you're going to keep it off for good if you continue eating the right foods that you necessarily have and not going over your calorie surplus to keep you gaining weight, eating the unhealthy foods that we should stay away from. Another The third thing that was very, very problematic, she mentions your mental health impacting your physical health. However, there's been research that have said eating processed sugary foods has been linked to anxiety, ADHD, depression, and other mental disorders. Now, for her, the fact that she will come on here and say that your mental health is important, not your physical health, because it impacts, that's true to a certain degree, but eating the foods that you're physically eating could impact your mental health. And since she is a Harvard graduate, I thought it would be more suiting to read this article in regards to food impacting your health. Now let's get into it. So hold on. Education website is www.health.harvard.edu, and I'll link this article in my bio or in the page so that you can read it yourself. So it says here, studies have compared traditional diets like the Mediterranean diet and the traditional Japanese diet to a typical Western diet and have shown that the risk of depression is 25 to 35% lower in those who eat a traditional. For this difference, because these traditional diets tend to be high in vegetable, fruits, unprocessed grains, and fish and seafood, and to contain only a modest amount of lean meats and dairy. They also avoid processed and refined foods and sugar, which are staples of the Western dietary pattern. In addition, many of these unprocessed foods are fermented and therefore act as natural probiotics. This may sound impossible to you, but the notion that good bacteria not only influence what your gut digests and absorbs, but they also affect the degree of inflammation throughout your body, as well as your mood and energy, is gaining traction among researchers. Now, this is from Harvard. They're stating how having a healthy diet can lower the depression than what our diet with the Western diet. So the fact that she would sit here and call out diet culture for being toxic, but the diets that she's calling out that are healthy, that's the Japanese and what is it, the Mediterranean diet that is very healthy, lowers your depression, your mental health. So therefore, the reason why she makes these unpopular takes when it comes down to calling out fat phobia, calling out these brands for being fat phobia, because she is grifting. This is the art of grifting, being very polarizing, because let's be honest, controversial content draws followers. And what happens when followers draw? That draws money, that draws attention, and that draws fame as well. Look at examples like Kevin Samuels when he made that popular video, "You're Gonna Die Alone," especially when it's a black woman being humiliated. You know he's gonna call all the people to the forefront to come to the channel, and he got over 1 million subscribers. But enough to talk about Kevin Samuels. The point is that you have to be careful with these grifters in the community, because they will call out these unpopular takes and people will agree with it because they have a what's it called, like a, I don't know what it's called, but basically they can resonate with the concept because they are obese, they're feeling some type of way, and they're feeling that, clothing stores should bend to their needs because they are plus size, and that they shouldn't be excluded from wearing nice, cute clothes. And that may be true, but real advocacy starts with calling out these food companies, calling out our lawmakers, our Congress, for putting this junk in our food in the first place. It shouldn't be legal for what the things that they put in our food and that we're constantly getting sick from. So that's, to me, that's real advocacy if you're really fighting for the people in your community to have better health care to help with obesity, because let's be honest, obesity is not fun. It's not fun not being able to run or to walk at the speed that you want to, or to be in constant pain because you have so much weight on your knees. I made this video so that you can have discernment and stop following these people. Even though she's very intellectual, she's very popular, she's a transgender, she's talented in so many ways, but she used her intellectual to gain intellectual superiority over others so that people would look up to her and believe that, oh, she's a Harvard graduate, she knows what she's talking about. I'm going to listen to her and I'm not going to get on diet and get healthy because she's not getting healthy, and look at her. And honestly, that's keeping you stagnant. You need to stop listening to these people, not necessarily listen with me. Use discretion with me because I don't have everything right. Even though I am a nutrition coach and I help people, but that doesn't mean I have all the answers. So with that, to be honest with you, when it comes down to the body positive community, you have people like Lizzo and Adele. They were the big advocates for the body positive movement. And then what happened years later, they came out and lost weight, start going to the gym, and stop battering themselves. So what I say that to say this is that even though they might say that they're so confident, deep down inside they're not confident of being the size that they are and that they actually want to be healthy. It wouldn't surprise me if Samira came out a couple years later and she gets on Ozempic or lose all that weight, and then people are going to be like, I thought she wasn't trying, I thought being big was the thing, was the it, being the it girl, being big. But actuality, they're not comfortable. There have been a lot of body positive people that have lost weight. So discernment and get in the best health that you possibly can, and stop listening to Samira or others like her that's keeping you obese and complacent, because it's going to ruin your health. And it's only one of you, and so if you love yourself enough, you will make sure that you're in the best health that you possibly can be. So with that said, please like, comment, subscribe, and we need to really have a dialogue and discourse on what influencers that are problematic and what we can do in the future to do better so that we can catch these people in their tracks and not follow their lead. So until next time, stay tuned.
I'm not saying that obese people should be treated badly and we should call them inhumane names or treat them like social pariahs. I'm saying that we should start treating obesity like a disease caused by the environment that we live in, because that is what it is. Food deserts, right? Processed food industry, sedentary jobs, all incentivized by multi-billion-dollar industries like big food, pharma, even parts of the health industry benefit from managing obesity instead of curing it or preventing it altogether. People like to say that obesity is a term that merged from white supremacy, and that might be true. However, in modern day America, there is no healthy obesity. People in the pre-modern world didn't have food additives. They didn't have processed food. They didn't have sugar-filled everything. Obesity in America is engineered. And the data alone on heart disease, diabetes, and joint failure prove that there is no healthy obesity. A body positivity movement that focuses on fashion and media alone isn't true advocacy. It's a fight for symbolic representation instead of material health, right? The fight should be for a healthy environment, real food, walkable cities, access to preventative health care, not plus-size mannequins. Directing anger at clothing brands instead of the FDA and food companies is a win for the system. That just means that there is a market to make more money. When your advocacy starts and ends at the store window and not the grocery aisle, you are not an advocate. You are a brand consultant for a disease. True advocacy is not fighting to celebrate a disease. It's fighting to cure the conditions that caused it. We must treat obese individuals as victims of a systemic disease.
And we still have to do it with compassion, but we should be fighting to get them access to real health care, nutrients, and metabolic support, not just better looking clothes. Advocacy must target the root issue. Banning food additives, subsidizing vegetables, designing walkable cities for movement, breaking the profit link between industry and illness. We should not strive to create a society that makes it easier to be obese. We must create a society that makes it almost impossible to become obese. This isn't about spreading hate or even holding people accountable. It's about caring about humanity enough to want people to be healthy, vital, and free from preventable disease.